Now that my game had a total of 3 bosses, barely meeting the minimum for what I expected from a boss rush game, it was time for me to input various amounts of additions into this project, also known as... My game had multitudinous issues. For one, it didn't yet have a name yet, which is a pretty big problem. After a very long time of deliberation, the current name for this project will be Mischief Must Halt, or MMF for short. Another problem my game had was with its UI. I was told by some of my friends that I had tested my game that the UI was pretty much unreadable. The main problems are as followed. Number 1, people did not know which slot was for which sort of attack, so I added different icons to display the attack type. Number 2, people thought that a healing bar was the health bar. This is hopefully mitigated by making the healing bar less wide overall. Going back to the healing bar problem, most dangers in this game are colored red, as like most other bullet hells. The healing point then would prove to be problematic, as it was red, the color of danger in my game. So the healing bar and the healing points are now green. I also thought the player character was pretty bland, so to hopefully fix this issue, the runes that the player equips will now also show around the player character. There have also been some overhauls to existing bosses, meaning the third phase of the second boss and the entirety of the third boss. The third phase of the second boss generally had some issues that in my opinion failed to make it work. First, the enemies at the boss spawns were able to move the boss around, which could lead to unpredictable movement and also didn't really make sense, as how would a small ice chunk be able to move something that was 10 times its size? To mitigate this issue, the third phase of the second boss is now entirely stationary. The boss also can't be moved in any way. Because the boss is now planned to be pretty much stationary, the only attack that actually moved the boss has been replaced with firing 4 trailing bullets that split into 4 other trailing bullets. The boss being completely stationary also created some new issues, mainly making it an easier target against the ranged attacks. There were many ways to fix this issue, such as adding objects that the player has to destroy first before being able to damage the boss. But the option I chose, because I kinda suck at programming, was a windshield every 6 seconds that lasts for 3 seconds, that also destroys bullets that inactive. While I am not yet completely happy with this phase, as it seems to spam way too many enemies, so it may also be changed again in the future. I had 2 major gripes with the third boss, mainly bullet spam and how its tentacles could pretty much be ignored, even though they were actually supposed to play a bigger part in the fight. To make the tentacles play a bigger part, and also to make them feel less random, the tentacles now spawn periodically every 10 seconds instead of as an attack of the boss. Since the new tentacle spawning mechanic increases the overall tentacle count, the 10% damage reduction for each tentacle, as mentioned in the previous devlog, is now more prevalent. These new tentacles also now have dramatically decreased health, making it much more easier to kill than before. In the past, a player could essentially ignore these tentacles as they didn't spawn very often, and were also sort of tanky, which made players target the boss instead, as the tentacles really did not matter. However, now tentacles are both much easier to kill, they must also be targeted, or the boss will take vastly reduced damage, because the tentacles spawn way more often. Instead of just aiming up towards the boss, since the Kraken is stationary, the player now has to actually aim towards other enemies, which are the tentacles, which would hopefully increase player engagement in fighting this boss. Since the Kraken no longer spawns tentacles as one of its attacks, the Kraken itself is now technically easier. To have a similar difficulty to the previous Kraken, the attack rate of the Kraken has also been increased, and some attacks have also gotten slight changes. This generally makes the attacks harder to dodge than before. Between the last devlog and now, I've also added 1 new boss, although it does currently lack an arena. The name of the boss is the Ulfindar, which is based on the Nordic culture of some men wearing the skins of wolves as they went to battle. A different name for these warriors would be Berserkers. This boss is composed of 2 phases, and the attacks of the first phase are slashing at the player 3 times and then throwing a fast bouncing axe that later returns to the boss when it expires. Slash the player 4 times, each time creating a flying slash that cannot be dashed through. This attack is black with a red outline, differentiating it from normal dodgeable attacks. Roar and shoot out 3 circles of bullets. Jump at the player and on impact shoot out 2 circles of bullets. Rate 12 homing bullets in a circle. Throw 2 axes toward the player. When these axes expire, they become breakable and return to the boss, which will be displayed by the axes turning purple. If these axes successfully return to the boss will heal some health. The boss goes into its second phase when it reaches 50% of its total health. During this phase, every time the player takes damage, the boss will heal a little bit. The boss also gains 2 new attacks during this phase. The boss roars towards the player, shooting out a spread of bullets of various sizes and speeds. Throw an axe towards the player, and upon landing, this axe will create 3 damaging chains that rotate slowly. The axe will then slowly move back towards the boss. In the future, bosses will not have their entirety reviewed and explained. Instead, only a small portion of the boss's moveset and other relevant information will be explained because, well, spoilers. Also keep in mind that none of these bosses are fully finished, and everything shown in these devlogs are subject to change. Boss progression is also slightly more planned out. The player will first fight 2 introductory bosses in it, and then they will have 5 paths to choose from. Once the player finishes a path, they will gain a key, and once they obtain 3 keys, they'll be able to fight the final boss and beat the game. If you have any suggestions, please write them in the comments. Unfortunately, this is all I have for this devlog.